The human battlecruiser Fenrir and 3 destroyers sit in orbit around Gernlock 2 amongst the broken hulls of the human 5th Fleet, Kharliv 12th, and 1st Battle Fleet, drifting in front of what was supposed to be the civilian escape corridor. On the opposite side of the wreckage from the corridor stood the full might of the Kharliv 8th Battle Fleet, 32 destroyers, 16 cruisers and 4 battleships organised into 4 wings. Their orders were simple: destroy anybody trying to escape the planet, then glass it. Captain Derek of the Fenrir looked over system displays of his wounded warship as she hid behind the broken hull of the battleship Odin. The picture was grim. FTL was turned to slag. 3 of the 5 fusion reactors were not responding, and any semblance of armor on the port side was either gone or had so many holes as to be worthless. The destroyers were not in much better shape. The Faceti lost her bridge and weapons director to a spinal lance shot, and was being commanded by a charismatic petty officer 3rd class. Magni was essentially declawed. All her weapons but her missile tubes were either spent or destroyed. Then the Modi should have been scuttled. Almost all her external hull plating was gone, and her engine room was exposed to the void, but her crew refused to leave. Outside the wreckage, the Kharliv were moving one wing around what they thought was just a debris field, with the other 3 wings hanging back to commence an orbital bombardment. Their scanners could not see the remaining human ships, with so much interference and radiation from breached reactors and hulks that still had emergency batteries keeping directional sensors sweeping. The sensor reflector plating from the Loki created sensor ghosts and sensor reflections of the Kharliv ships. As the wings started moving over top of the debris, the human passive scanners detected the formation and sent the crew scrambling to man what weapons they had left. On the bridge of the Fenrir, the tactical display flickered as it displayed a battleship, 4 cruisers and 8 destroyers moving over top of the wreckage in a spearhead formation, with the battleship in the rear. Derek studied the display and what little information the passive sensors and cameras could gather. What he saw told him they did not know he was there. They were running at cruising speed with minimum shields. He signalled on a line-of-sight system for the destroyers to hold fire. He realised if they waited until the ships were past them, they could open fire on their lightly armoured and underprotected rears. Frick, on the Kharliv battleship, looked at his tactical display. The humans had put up a good fight. Not many in the galaxy could fight 2 battle fleets to annihilation, but when you use relativistic weapons, even the most powerful shields would struggle to hold. However, the 12th and 1st fleets did their job and cleared out the orbital space. Now they could finish wiping out the colony and move on to the Tarlel home system. He then got an alert on his display informing him that 3 active power sources were confirmed in the debris field. However, he brushed it off as some broken ships, whose reactors hadn't stopped sputtering, and disregarded it. He ordered all ships to prepare to fire on the transport that was attempting to make a run for the jump point, his sensors detecting reflections of his weapons charging. Derek waited until the entire wing was past his fleet and rotated the Fenrir so his still armoured starboard side was facing the enemy. He charged all turrets to full power. He signalled the destroyers to open fire when he did, and lined up a clear shot in the engine room of the battleship. Thanks to the sensor ghosts, the Kharliv didn't detect them until it was too late. "Fire!" he called out, and 6 cannons fired depleted uranium slugs at the battleship at .02C. The other 6 slugs were spread across 3 of the cruisers. The destroyers opened fire with their cannons on the remaining cruiser and fired 30 missiles at the destroyers. The Kharliv battleship never got the chance to respond. By the time the sensors confirmed the weapons they detected were not reflections, they all had been hit by the relativistic slugs. The shield absorbed the first hit, and the armor held out on the second, but the third blew the armor clean off, and 3 relativistic slugs slammed into her engine room, rupturing her reactors and causing her to explode in a miniature nova, a massive white flash blinding sensors and getting the attention of the other wings. The shockwave shoved the Fenrir back into the hulk that used to be the Odin, knocking out another reactor. The cruisers didn't put up much more of a fight. They detected the weapons fire, but before they could raise their shields, the slugs hit home. 2 slugs from the Fenrir, smashing right through their shields and armor, knocking 3 out. The 2 destroyers that still had cannons put a combined 8 slugs into the remaining cruiser's engine room. The cruiser's shield stopped 2 of the destroyer's slugs, and its armor stopped another 2, but the rest of the slugs hit home and knocked it out of the fight. The Kalev destroyers were able to get shields and point defense online and stop most of the missiles from hitting, but one slipped through and smashed itself into an ammunition depot, causing a chain reaction that blew the ship in 2. The Kalev wing was in shambles. 7 destroyers remaining, and they started firing wildly into the debris field, not knowing exactly where the enemy ships were. Lacking the more powerful sensors of the battleships, but knowing the general area. The Fenrir groaned from the recoil of the weapons and the impact with the Odin, leaving her with 1/5 the power generation she was designed for. Then the return fire started. It was clear to Derek that they didn't have their exact location, but they didn't need it. They just needed to saturate the area in plasma fire. "How many turrets can we get functional on one reactor?" Derek asked. "We can have 1 at half power or 4 at minimal power," the weapons officer reported. "Bring 3 online and use the rest of the power for the engines," Derek ordered, as he pushed his ship out from under the Odin, as her corpse was cut down her length by a plasma lance. Once the Fenrir got into view of the Kalev destroyers, they opened fire on her, but the sensor ghosts kept confusing their targeting systems, causing them to fire on empty space or maneuver to avoid fire that was just a sensor reflection of their own weapons charging. The plasma lances of the Kalev streaked across the void, smashing into the Fenrir's starboard side armor, superheating it as the Fenrir fired again, taking out another 2 enemies and diving back for cover, this time behind what was left of the Thor. The Faceti was the first human ship to be destroyed. The person commanding it, not knowing ship-to-ship combat tactics, pushed too far out from cover, and the sensor ghosts, giving the Kalev a clean sensor reading. She was then hammered by 5 plasma lances that sliced through her armor. The Modi got another volley off, blowing up an enemy before getting hit by a plasma lance to her reactor, sending her into a nova that blinded the Kalev sensors. The Magni stayed behind cover and fired another salvo of missiles at 2 of the Kalev destroyers, getting through their blinded point defenses and taking them out, but depleting her missile supplies. The Fenrir then came out from behind cover again, starboard armor slagged, and fired into the remaining 2 destroyers, taking them out. Derek relaxed slightly in his command chair before looking at his sensors and seeing the other 3 wings of the Kalev fleet burning hard to their location. After considering his options and what he had left, Derek ordered the remaining crew to evacuate to the Magni and have her escape with the transport. After several long minutes, the Fenrir had been evacuated, with only Derek staying behind, and the Magni started running for the jump point. Derek, sitting at the helm, raised the Fenrir out of the debris field and waited for the Kalev fleet to arrive while sending encrypted gibberish communication bursts back into the debris to make the Kalev think there were more ships still in hiding. The Kalev commander looked at their tactical display. It was reporting that the entire wing had been destroyed, and showed one clearly beaten but alive human battlecruiser rising out of the debris field. It then started reporting dozens of energy signals inside the debris, and a large volume of heavily encrypted communications traffic. This gave the command pause. Just how many human ships were still alive, and just hiding inside the debris field, and how had the humans stayed undetected from the battleship they ambushed? Cautiously, the commander ordered battle lines, and had the battleships begin firing at every power signal and communication signal they detected with their spinal lances. Derek saw the enemy fleet slow down and start forming a battle line, and realized he had to do something to keep them distracted once his ship was destroyed. He launched all 5 remaining drones to hide behind the hulks in the debris field to create power signatures and random communication signals. When Derek attempted to pull the Fenrir back into the debris field, an alert went off. The final reactor had sputtered out. Derek now watched helplessly from his battery-powered view screen as the Kalev forces opened fire on him and his sensor ghosts. He watched with grim satisfaction as the sensors reported the civilian transport and the Magni jump out of the system, and that they were wasting time and energy firing on ghosts, just before he and his ship were ripped apart by a full salvo from 3 Kalev cruisers.